Somewhere on Earth tonight, a family is going to wake up to freezing water rising through their home. That happens today, with weather satellites, flood warnings, and rescue helicopters standing by. Now, take all of that away. No warning system, no heated shelter waiting once you escape, no emergency crew coming to find you. Just you, the dark, and water cold enough to kill you faster than the flood itself ever could. That was a real repeating event for your ancestors, and they kept surviving it for tens of thousands of years. So how does anyone survive a disaster with zero warning in the season where every mistake is worth dying? Because here's the twist nobody expects. Some of the worst floods in ancient history had nothing to do with rain. They came from ice. And once you understand how that worked, the story turns into a chain of near misses, where every fix for one problem accidentally created the next one. During the Ice Age, glaciers regularly dammed entire valleys, trapping massive lakes of melted ice water behind walls of solid ice, sometimes for years. Geologists call it a glacial outburst flood. And when that ice wall finally gave out, it didn't leak. It let go all at once. Researchers studying ancient flood deposits, from the channeled scablands of North America to glacial valleys in the Altai Mountains, have found floods that moved more water in a single day than an ordinary river moves in a year's. And because the trigger was invisible, sitting miles upstream, this thing could hit on any night, with zero storm clouds, zero rainfall, and zero warning. Just a roar in the dark. Here's the accident hiding inside this disaster. Surviving the flood itself wasn't actually the hardest part. A wet human loses body heat up to 25 times faster than a dry one, so the moment you dragged yourself out of that freezing water, a second and much quieter killer started its clock. Hypothermia, moving fast in your body and with no dry clothes waiting anywhere because most people owned exactly one set. Escaping the flood solved one problem and immediately created another one. So the fix was obvious: get to a fire. Except everything around you was now soaked. The wood, the tinder, even the ground, which is exactly why ancient groups didn't rely on one fire. Archaeologists have found backup fire kits, tinder fungus, flint, dry kindling, deliberately stored in separate, elevated, protected spots. When Ötzi the Iceman was found in the Alps, he was still carrying a complete fire-starting kit, 5,000 years after floods like this first taught people to keep one. Solve the fire problem, though, and you're still standing in the wreckage of a shelter that no longer exists. In summer, losing your shelter is annoying. There's material everywhere to rebuild with. But in the dead of winter, the ground is frozen solid and there's almost nothing left to gather. So groups adapted by building several smaller shelters clustered together instead of one large structure. Lose one to the flood, and the group doesn't lose everything. Just a third of it. Problem solved. Except now you've got dry ground, a spare fire, and a surviving shelter, and absolutely nothing left to eat. Because winter food stores were the entire group's survival margin for months, and floodwater could erase all of it in minutes with no growing season left to replace it. That's exactly why winter caches got built elevated, on platforms, or on naturally raised ground, chosen specifically to sit above the worst floodline anyone in the group had ever seen. Get that elevation wrong once, and the group didn't lose some of their food. They lost all of it in the hungriest months of the year. And here's where the whole chain finally stops, because none of these fixes, elevated camps, backup fires, clustered shelters, raised food stores, actually came from any one clever person in the moment. They came from a group remembering the last flood in enough detail and passing it down until the next generation built everything 2 feet higher without ever needing to ask why. So here's the full picture. Escaping the water exposed the cold. Beating the cold exposed a ruined shelter. Rebuilding the shelter exposed a wiped out food supply. Every single fix created the next problem in line. And the only thing that ever actually broke the chain was memory, spoken out loud, generation after generation. So next time a storm knocks your power out for an evening, remember, your ancestors solved this exact chain of disasters with nothing but a fire they refused to let die, and a memory of exactly where the water reached the last time. That memory is the only reason a flood like that isn't still killing people the way it used to.